Hello, I'm Hannah, and this is Hannah's Books. Today, I want to answer a very interesting tag created by Bob at Robert G. Reader of Books, the Booktube behind the scenes tag. I was tagged in Bob's wonderful introduction to the tag, as well as by the lovely Pat at Book Chat with Pat. So, let's get straight to the questions. The first is, when recording a post, do you read from a prepared script? Or do you refer to notes or an outline? Or do you speak extemporaneously? As a person who cannot think on her feet and who still struggles with camera shyness, I do plan out my videos. First, I make a detailed outline with fairly comprehensive notes, sometimes even thinking through specific wording of certain sections that feel more complex for whatever reason. And then I practice it, so the words are under my tongue a bit. And then I sit down to film, with my notes in a spot where I can glance at them easily. I so wish that I could film extemporaneously, as so many of you do, just chatting with y'all. But if that's what I had to do, I wouldn't be able to maintain a channel at all. Still, I absolutely love the freshness and immediacy that comes from those of you who speak more extemporaneously. Question 2. Do you edit before you post, deleting hems and haws and misspeaks, mispronunciations, etc.? Do you remove things you didn't mean to say or things that you think might be misunderstood? I do edit, although not heavily. Mostly I cut out long silences. When I pause to try to come up with some way to word what I want to say next. Occasionally I realize while I'm editing that a phrase or a sentence I've said doesn't have enough context to make sense to other people, so I usually cut that out. And sometimes I just stumble over a word, and I usually smooth that out too, but not always. Number 3, have you ever edited a post after posting? Have you ever deleted an entire post? I rarely do either of those things, but it has happened. In one of my early videos, I had originally inserted a tiny clip of me dancing with David when his brain tumor had already affected his mobility, with music playing in the background that was copyrighted. I thought the clip was short enough to be okay, but YouTube flagged it, saying it was fine to leave the video up, but that the owners of the copyright could put ads on my video, or I could remove the music. I decided to remove the music. Or rather, I just said that YouTube could remove the music. I didn't realize that one could edit a video after it was posted, and I haven't figured out how to do it since either. I have edited my notes section after I put up a video to correct an error, or add in additional information, or occasionally to remove something that didn't really belong. As for taking down a video entirely, I think I did that at least once. I think I was possibly thinking that I shared something too personal about someone else in my life. Fairly recently, after rereading a book I discussed in some detail during my very first days on Booktube, I considered making a new video about the book and replacing the original awkward version. But I've had so many people watch that video that I just decided to leave up the old one. When I think about it, even if it makes me feel a little embarrassed, it also reminds me of how much more comfortable I've become since then. And also how much better my camera is than my very old little phone. If I'm feeling brave enough, I'll link to that old video in the show notes below. And I'll explain more about my camera in a later question. The next question, are there certain topics you avoid, things you regard as too personal or too controversial? I don't think there's any subject that I see abstractly as too personal or too controversial to be discussed on Booktube. But there definitely are things that I personally try to talk about pretty gingerly, if at all. And there are different reasons for different issues. Wildly, for me, I didn't think the upcoming part of the discussion out in advance, outlining or whatever, since I decided I didn't want to talk about it here. But now it seems essential, so here it goes. First, I've been relatively open about what my spouse went through and how I've been feeling about it. I've done plenty of crying in my real life, but I've chosen not to make y'all suffer through that kind of thing, even though I hear that crying is the way to get a big following. I knew David was dying when I started my channel. He had just been diagnosed with terminal brain cancer, and I said in my very first video, the Booktube newbie tag, that I knew that I had what I called a family situation or something that might complicate my ability to participate here sometimes. At the same time, I knew I might need the sense of community that Booktube provides more than ever. And that's exactly how things worked. At first, when David was doing well, my Booktube schedule was fairly regular. And as he got sicker, I started taking much longer breaks here and there when I needed to be with him all the time. And after he died, I needed a little time to myself. And all of y'all were so amazingly patient and generous, and you've continued to be. The second anniversary of David's death is coming up shortly. And then the day that would have been our 30th wedding anniversary. I think I might read a couple of poems around those dates or something like that. Those of you who've been here a while have watched me go through the process of grief. The processes of grief, actually. Anticipatory grief. The incredibly hard final months of David's life. The relief and yet heartbreak when he took his last breaths. And everything afterwards, including all of the healing that has been happening. On another note, I've never hidden my politics, but I haven't talked about my politics in great detail in general. I made videos about my sadness after the election, and I talked about a book that discussed the role of charismatic Christianity on the 2021 coup attempt, etc. But I don't talk about politics in great detail. Still, as this country's situation gets more and more disturbing, I found myself talking about it in my last video, very meekly, but still more explicitly than I have in a while. And at some point I realized that even though my channel is small, I have a bigger audience here right now than I do anywhere else. And if I was going to speak up at all, this was a place to do it. I'm not interested in giving political screeds, not at all, but I do want to talk about what I think is important and why I feel that way. At the same time, this channel serves as a bit of a haven for me. I live in the DC area, and my circle of friends and neighbors are deeply connected to politics, but not quite so much to books. I talk about what's happening in the country and world all day long, and this is my place to talk about something else, something that often feeds me and calms me enough that I can be more effective in the activism of my real life. A few of my commenters, especially yesterday, made it clear that booktubers need to be speaking out more than most of us are. And that's given me a lot to think about. I want to shout out Brian at Bookish and David Novak Reads Poetry, for being exceptional in their very public stance on these kinds of issues. I'll link to both of their channels down below in the show notes. Okay, back to the questions. Number 5, do your posts include graphics or special lighting or music or fast cuts or whatever? I rarely have any significant stuff going on, but I do occasionally. For my regular videos, I do sometimes insert pictures of book covers, sometimes even when I own the books, but don't want to go collect them off my shelves and haul them up to my son's old bedroom where I film. I also sometimes put text on the screen, sometimes when I'm reading a passage aloud, and occasionally just a few words if I say the wrong word or want to give a date or whatever. I do have a little musical outro that I have used since the very beginning, I think. I assume most of you start hearing those notes and skip ahead to the next video in your queue. That's certainly what I would do. On occasion, I make little sections with photos or short video clips with musical accompaniment. I think I'll be doing more of that soon as I share some of my Boston adventures with you in the coming days. I really enjoy making those videos as long as it's just once in a while for something special. While I haven't been doing it lately, the special addition that I think is the most important is putting up closed captions. Most of you probably wouldn't even know when they're there. YouTube puts up automatically generated captions that are pretty good, but people with channels can clean them up and correct them before the videos post. It takes a little time, but it makes the videos accessible for people with hearing issues and for people who, for whatever reason, sometimes want or need to listen without the sound on. For speakers of other languages whose understanding of English might be boosted by having both speech and text, etc. I want to add in a little bit here about what equipment I use and why. For a while before COVID, I taught online, and the organization that hired me sent me a camera and a tripod, as well as a background I was supposed to use in my videos. I actually made a whole video about it once, showing my setup to you, and I'll link to it below. The camera is not super fancy or anything, but it was radically better than the very old phone that I had back then. I also have a box light. I usually film in front of a sunny window, but the next few weeks will probably require the use of the box light since it's been pouring rain and now there is going to be major construction in my neighborhood during the next few days, possibly for as long as a month. And I might need to film in the quiet of the evenings instead of the busy, loud mornings. The sixth question: do you have a target number of posts each week? For the last couple of years, I've been wildly erratic. I used to try really hard to make 2 per week and a third video every now and again. And I'd like to go back to that, I think. But for now, I sometimes make several videos right next to each other and then go a full week or 2 without posting at all. I am so grateful to y'all for putting up with me. Question 7. Are there certain themed posts you contribute to regularly, such as Poetry Thursday, or one I haven't heard of, What Are You Reading Wednesday? Well, yes, when I get my act together, the one I am closest to being regular about is Tag Tuesday. And here I am posting a Tag Tuesday video on, Thursday? And who knows when I'll actually get it posted. But on to the 8th question. How important to you is the number of your subscribers? Is there a target number you're hoping to reach? And if you don't hit that target, would you step off of Booktube? Are your posts designed to attract new subscribers? Are you distressed if you lose subscribers? When I first started my channel, reaching 100 subscribers was such an astonishing feat. I danced around the house and squealed, and also almost shuttered my channel because it was so weird that so many strangers were watching what I said. Now, I recently passed 6,000 subscribers. I know that is small potatoes for YouTubers, but it does make me feel like an absolute star. But while the numbers tickle me, I really don't care at all how many subscribers I have. What I value much more highly is the quality of the conversations in the comments fields. I love getting to know people that way and making new friends and hearing their thoughts. For reasons I really can't explain, I not infrequently get behind on my responses to people's comments. Sometimes I put them off even though they're the real payback of having a Booktube channel. I love reading the comments in other people's videos too, seeing all of the interesting bookish people there and the funny quips and the camaraderie as well as the conversation. As for losing subscribers, I do remember being quite worried when I lost my first subscriber. Had I accidentally done something that offended someone? Losing one subscriber now doesn't bother me. I lost a few after my last post where I talked about politics. But I also had some really wonderful conversations in the comments about it. So be it. On the other hand, I suppose if I suddenly lost 100 subscribers for no reason obvious to me, I would worry a bit. Not because of losing the numbers, but because of why I might have lost that many at once, especially if I hadn't foreseen it or didn't understand it after the fact. Question 9. Do you always respond when tagged? Golly, no. I almost always have the best of intentions to do so, and yet I just don't. Sometimes I do something random because it's right in front of me, rather than going through the list I sort of half-heartedly keep of really great tags I've been tagged in and want to do. I've got to get a better system going. Question 10. Do you respond to viewers' comments? Are your responses lengthy or only a thumbs up or down? I do try to respond, and I've gotten better at it very recently, but I'm terrible at keeping up with the comments. My work life and my extended responsibilities in another situation in which I am needed steer me away for a while, and then somehow I don't catch up when I get finished with the other stuff, and then I put it off, etc. I'm terrible at it, even though, as I said above, it is one of my favorite parts of Booktube. Please don't take it personally if I don't respond at all or if I respond very late in the game. Question 11. Have you ever blocked anyone from viewing or commenting on your posts? In the days when there were pornographic spammers leaving comments left and right, I did block those. I've been pretty lucky not to get many terrible comments, though. There are 2 videos that have gotten a lot of kind of rude comments. One is about the controversial biography of Roth that came out a few years ago, in which I poo-pooed Roth a bit. And the other is a reading of one of Flannery O'Connor's stories, where I don't use racial slurs, but do acknowledge their presence, or rather their absence in my video. If the comments on either video seem truly unhinged and they're duplicated, I quickly block. Otherwise, depending on the tone, I either let the comments sit but don't respond to them, or I actually explain my perspective and ask some questions politely about their views. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten what I think is a kind of aggressive comment and then had it turn into a nice conversation and even a kind of bookish friendship of sorts. I have one person who wrote to me every time he finished a new Roth novel, for example, and told me how he felt about each in relation to the others. I loved that. I don't think he watches any of my other videos, but he stayed in touch with me for a couple of years just because we both care about reading, even if we have very different tastes. Prompt 12 is the final one, to tag some Booktube friends. Since I shouted out both Brian at Bookish and David at David Novak Reads Poetry, I think I'll tag them. Neither of them do many tags these days, but I thought I'd give it a shot. And if you haven't been tagged yet to do this video, I'd love to see what you have to say. Feel free to say I tagged you and let me know so I can go watch. Well, that will do it for today. Thanks, Bob, for creating this really interesting tag, and to Bob and Pat for tagging me. And thanks to all of you for joining me here on Hannah's Books. See you soon.